everybody, we're diving back into another video. Today we'll be tackling a really interesting piece, the foot peg. To start, let's get our gizmo up and running and choose the polycube from the gear menu. Next, hit Unify and delete loops. Mask out the back poly and extend it out. Then we'll slice in an edge loop. Go ahead and press Ctrl W to group visible. Alright, let's bring the model to the right size. Scale it down along the Z axis. Then weld it along the Y axis. Now you're going to want to select Insert multiple edge loops with alternate polygroups as your modifier. Let's do a quick count to make sure it matches the foot peg. Alt and click to change the polygroup on the top two polys. Now unmask that middle edge loop and move it forward. We're going to add in a couple of edge loops on both sides and then give them a bevel. Next, alt-click the front 6 faces to change their polygroup. Now it's time to polygroup the polyloop and the flat island. Alt-click the front polys again and extrude them with the gizmo. Let's bring up your gizmo again and select Deformer Soft from the gear menu. Select the middle points and move them up a bit. Polygroup that polyloop and select QMesh Polygroup All. Then select Scale Polygroup All and pop in another edge loop. Alt-click the 6 faces and QMesh them downwards. Then we can go ahead and scale in the edges. Next, press QC40 and set the crease level to 2. Time to alt-click the 4 polys to QMesh them upwards. Let's scale them inwards a bit and press Ctrl W again to group visible. Unmask the back and move it in. Go ahead and transpose those front polys and move them outwards. To extrude, hold down the Control key and move with the gizmo. Uncrease that edge loop and grab the Move Infinite Depth brush to make some final adjustments. Let's unmask those bottom faces and scale them inward a tad. Bring up the gizmo again and select Deformer Soft from the gear menu. Once you're happy with it, hit accept to lock it in. Next, we want to switch to the bottom view and slice in an edge loop. Let's scale it back a bit. Then alt tag the bottom polys to QMesh them in. Now we can unmask that poly group and move it up. Then go ahead and align the edge strip. Hit Crease PG to get those creases going, and continue setting up the creases with your ZModeler brush. Now it's time to mask the model. Bring up the gizmo once more and select Cylinder 3D from the gear menu. Invert the mask and split unmasked points. Press QC50, then scale down the cylinder and rotate it into place. Now duplicate that cylinder using the gizmo and weld those cylinders along the Y-axis. Mask the model again and give the gizmo a 45-degree rotation. Bring up the gizmo and choose Polycube from the gear. Invert the mask and split those unmasked points. Let's go ahead and scale and position the cube into place. We won't be needing some of those edge loops, so feel free to delete them. QMesh the two polys and press QC50. Add in a few more edge loops and uncrease those corners. Let's adjust the distance of the flat island using QMesh. Once that's done, hit apply and delete the lower subdivisions for all the subtools. Now it's time to merge all the subtools down. Let's give it a Dynamesh utility treatment with the poly count set to 1 million, blur to 0, and auto scaler turned on. Use the picker to set the resolution, then give it a polish. Set the weighted smooth mode to 1 for a stronger smoothing effect. Grab that mask curve brush to set up our masking. Now we can switch to the masked pen to clean up the bottom. Invert the mask and hit Ctrl W to group the mask. Let's unmask that polygroup. Next, blur the mask and run a polish by features. Now with your gizmo, extrude it upwards and scale it in a little. Now we can run another polish by features. Let's do a Dynamesh and another round of polishing. Mask your model, bring up the gizmo and select Cylinder 3D from the gear menu. Set your H divides to 100 and scale it down. Let's do some scaling and moving to get that cylinder into the right position. Mask your model again, bring up your gizmo and select Polysphere from the gear. Let's go ahead and set all the cones to 100. Next, unmask the sphere and cylinder to adjust their scale and location. Clear off that mask and Dynamesh it. Do a quick smooth and run a polish.